How is everyone, first of all? Any team news ahead of the weekend?
No, nothing in particular. Luckily, we haven't. It's the usual suspects really that we've been missing for a while. They're still out, but otherwise we're not looking too bad going into Monday.
How's James Tompkins doing?
Well, he's seeing a specialist again today. He's seen the specialist twice now. He's seeing him again for a third time because, of course, the eye needs to settle down a little bit before they can make the judgments that are necessary. But I'm hoping when I speak to him later on this afternoon that it will be positive. It was certainly a lot more positive the last time I spoke to him. But unfortunately, we're still going to have to pass on his services for a bit longer because it was quite a serious incident which caused him the eye injury.
And how is Jean-Philippe Mateta settling in? How's he been in training the last couple of days?
Yeah, good. I mean, unfortunately, at the moment, the training sessions that you do with so many games tend to be fairly condensed, and you don't do a lot of work over big areas. It's often much more small area work. So, of course, the type of centre forward he is, it'd be nice to see him when he can stretch his legs and play in a more than 11-a-side area. But I think he's settled in very well. He seems like a very bright player and a bright person. So we believe in him and we believe that he will have a good future at the club.
Can we expect to see him on the weekend?
He's in the squad. So I would think there's a good chance, but I'm not prepared to say at the moment whether he's starting or not. That will have to be a surprise for everybody, one way or the other.
I look forward to seeing that. With his arrival, there's been a lot of talk about Christian Benteke. I know you were asked about him last week, and you said, look, there were no bids on the table. Has anything changed? Do you expect him to stay at Crystal Palace?
Yes, I do. I mean, the fact is, it's the speculation has come not from us; it's come from outside. You can never dismiss that. There may be clubs out there interested in taking him, and who knows? Maybe the club will be confronted with a situation where there's a decision to be made, and where Christian gives a decision to be made. But that's certainly not the case. I speak to you today, so until something really does happen where a decision has to be made, we'll carry on happily as we've been doing.
And I know the club were interested in Damari Gray. Again, you were asked about that last week. You said at the time that you wouldn't be surprised if a lot of clubs were interested. Bayer Leverkusen seemed to be very interested, and reports suggesting he's close to a move there. Is that something you're still pursuing?
Well, I don't know really, if I'm being brutally honest with you, that we have been pursuing it. I mean, I think it's like everything else. You get these transfer speculations, but it's a player, of course, that we're aware of, but who isn't aware of him? And it's a situation that he finds himself in that we're aware of too, because everyone who works here, Doug Friedman, all the people who work with him, they know all the players who are out of contract at the end of the year, and they know their situation. So when his name's been mentioned, I've been very keen not to lie and say, no, not interested at all, never heard of him. But on the other hand, that's a long way, or a big gap between that and us actively pursuing him. So as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I know, there's been no particular pursuit of the player. And I stick with what I said, that you've quoted, that of course he's a good player, and any player of that quality whose contract is running out is going to be hot property in today's world, in particular, where there's not a lot of money around.
Are you expecting to do any more business before that deadline on Monday night?
No, not particularly. Like all clubs, I hear other managers speaking, and I'm in exactly the same boat. Of course, if something comes up, you don't turn your nose up at it, but I'm not really expecting it, and I am happy with the group of players I have here and the squad I have here. I believe in them, so there's certainly no desperation on my part at all.
And Roy, just a word on Wolves as well. I know you've played them recently in the FA Cup. In terms of the Premier League, you've actually got identical records. What have you made of them this season?
Well, of course, they did so brilliantly well last year. They sort of took the league by storm, and this year they've not been able to take the league by storm, but they're still a very good team. And the qualities they had last year that brought them into the really top echelon of our league hasn't worked out for them just now. But there's a lot of football to be played, and there's nothing to say that in the next half of the season they won't find that form again, or maybe have that little bit of luck when they need it again, and they'll climb the table because the quality of their players is very good. They have a good system of play. The manager Nuno's done a fantastic job there with the players he's got. So once again, we've got to be prepared for a game where we'll have to pull out all the stops to make certain we stay with them, because that's how good they are.
Thanks, Roy. Great to speak to you, and good luck on Saturday.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you. We'll go to Anne-Marie from PLP.
Hi, Roy.
Marie.
Hello. You mentioned very briefly about the training preparations when Emma was asking about Mateta. Is there anything particular that's been worked on this week? Because it's, as you mentioned, it's so congested with the games.
Well, today was I think his second or third training session. So we are very much in the infancy stage where it comes to him training with us and us getting a chance to fully assess him. The assessment I have of him and the club has of him is, of course, based on our scouting work, watching him play all of those games, following his progress and knowing that he's the type of player who fits the profile that interests us. So that's where we are with him. I can't really point at the moment to anything that's happening in training. I think that he's ready. If I want to play him from the start tomorrow, there won't be any problems with that. But on the other hand, if I don't want to play him from the start tomorrow, it's every training session, every day he spends in his new club is the step forward or the step towards being, or allowing him, if you like, to really showcase his talents.
How quickly do you think he can adapt to the intensity of the Premier League?
Quickly. I think he can adapt quickly. He's a physical player. He's very strong physically. He's a good athlete. Technically, he knows his way around the field as well. In particular, he knows his way around the penalty area when the ball's in there in terms of scoring goals. So I don't have any worries about that. It's just like everything else. You come to a new club. It's a bit of a whirlwind experience. Everything around you is so different to what you've been used to. The language, the way people speak. I think that you sometimes need a few days to settle down and get used to that new environment. But I don't fear that he won't be able to handle it or can't handle it. It's just a question at the moment. I have to look at the players I have that I can use in the game and decide whether I need him to start or whether I need him to start on the bench.
In terms of the game against Wolves, I have a stat. Their Wolves are winless in their last 7 games. How can Crystal Palace make it very uncomfortable for them at the weekend?
Well, it's a strange period at the moment. I think Wolves, like ourselves, have found themselves in a period where sometimes you meet a lot of the top teams and you don't find it as easy to get the results that you would like to get. But these things do tend to even out over a season if you can keep your head and keep playing the right sort of football. I watched them the other night against Chelsea. I thought they were excellent. I also watched their game against West Brom, which they lost. But, they certainly had an awful lot of the ball and created a lot of goal chances. So as far as I'm concerned, Wolves are the team that they were last year and will be preparing, if you like, to play against them in exactly the same way as we did last year when they were really flying high in the table. This year, they're on a par with us. So I suppose you could argue that would make for a good game. It's two teams, neither of which is winning every game at the moment and find themselves in the same position or the same part of the league table.
And I guess there's also the challenge of the pace that Neto can bring and Traore can bring, and then Podence can be a little bit mischievous as well.
No, I don't know about mischievous, but I mean, yes, they have pace in the team, but we're not exactly sure the pace in the team ourselves, So if you like, if I was arguing with a Wolves fan who was boasting about how many fast players they are and how dangerous they are, I think I could counter with quite a few of my own.
Last one from me. We're halfway now through the season of the Premier League. What's your half-term report?
It's been a mixed bag, really. We've had some good performances and good results, and we've had some bad ones. But strange enough, globally, we've actually been reasonably steady. But it's all about results, and one or two of the results we've had, which are definitely not being steady results, that tends to skew your view sometimes. But I still think we have a squad of players here that are more than capable of helping us achieve our goals. And I'm hoping that sooner rather than later we'll come out of this little bit of a trough that we found ourselves in, where we haven't won as many games as we would like, and we've only been able to boast about some very good draws.
Thanks for your time, Roy.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Are there any more broadcast questions, please? Go to George Session of PA.
Hi, Roy. I just wanted to ask you about Ray. Obviously, you said after Tuesday that he tested positive. How is he doing? And is there any chance he'd be back in the dugout for this weekend, or is he still isolated?
No, thank you for asking. He is still isolating. I speak to him every day. He's definitely feeling better, but unfortunately, at the moment, his wife is not feeling at all well. So that's one concern. And most importantly, he still has a period to go before he's allowed to test again by completing his isolation. But fortunately, he definitely feels an awful lot better than perhaps he did 4 or 5 days ago. So he's not feeling himself particularly knocked out by the disease or the virus, but he does actually make clear, it's probably a good time to point that out to everybody, that this isn't a virus to be taken lightly in any way, shape or form, and it's something that you definitely don't want to get, even if you're as fit and healthy as Ray is and always has been.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess maybe it was too quick to think about it for the West Ham game, but with Ray again not there on Saturday, have you thought about, or are you going to bring anybody in as just another pair of eyes on the touchline, or will it still be you,
no.
Dean, and Dave?
Oh no, there's no question of that. Obviously, whenever you miss a member of staff, his input and his eyes and his presence, his thoughts, you miss that, of course. But I mean, Ray isn't going to be out of action for any particular length of time. I'm even hopeful, perhaps, that his test will prove negative and he'll be back with us as early as the start of next week. But I can't rely upon that, and it will be dependent upon him, first of all, finishing his isolation period tomorrow and then getting tested on Sunday, and I hope getting the green light to be with us again. But until such time as Ray returns, I'm more than happy that Dave, I and Dean can hold the fort, and there's never been a moment's thought to bring anybody else in.
And just finally from me, since you've been at Palace, defensively the club's been so good over the last few seasons. This year's sort of not as strong defensively. Do you kind of you're sort of looking at that as a if you can get that right over the next sort of couple of games, it will really help kickstart the second half of the season?
Of course, and yet again that sort of record, if you like, and that statistic tends to sum up my feelings about the first half of the season, because I think it's as many as 21 of the goals that we've conceded have been in 5 games, or 4 games even, 5 games. If you take those 5 games out and you look at the other 15, I don't think the defensive record would be quite that dire. But these things can happen, but it does have an effect upon you. It has an effect upon you mentally. And of course, when the statistic is put in front of you, you can't argue it or deny it. It's true. We've let in far too many goals. But unfortunately, it skews a little bit the way I look at it, because I haven't really gone into each game thinking we're dreadful defensively. It's just that we have conceded goals which have been a combination, of course, of some mistakes, like all goals are, and unfortunately in 1 or 2 games some wonder strikes that we've been on the wrong end of.